Since it is still Christmas week, I thought it would be a nice time to share my all-time favorite Christmas story. And the story ended up being called the Gottrora Miracle. So, without much ado, let's get into it. On December 27th, 1991, that is 34 years ago, Scandinavian Airlines System Flight 751 from Stockholm Arlanda Airport to Warsaw, Poland via Copenhagen, Denmark departed at 8:47 a.m. The plane was almost brand new MD-81, basically in turn a second generation DC-9 model. Just so you know, McDonnell Douglas merged with Boeing in August 1997 in a $13 billion deal. St. Stephen's Day, December 26, 1991, was bitterly cold in Sweden, often like that such time of the year. A mechanic reported to Captain Stefan Rasmussen that there was much frost on the wings. Turns out the aircraft had packed overnight in freezing conditions, allowing clear ice to form undetected on the upper wings, that is, de-icing. De-icing fluid was applied, but the captain still wasn't happy and asked for it done again. Pilots were encouraged to voice concerns on de-icing jobs in the aftermath of the Air Florida Flight 90. Yeah, the Boeing 737 that crashed into the 14th Street Bridge over the Potomac River shortly after takeoff on January 13th, 1982. 74 of the 79 on board died, so saddened at breaking. The de-icing crews in Washington used mixtures of heated water and monopropylene glycol on that Boeing 737. However, they unevenly distributed the mixture between left and right side of the plane. Ice accumulated on the wing, hence plane barely got off ground and hit the bridge. Very sad. But then, let's go back to our story. When Captain Rasmussen inspected the wings in Stockholm in 1991, he wasn't thrilled with what he saw. He asked for the underside of the wings done again. The icing crew did it again and assured him a good job done, which visually it looked okay. As you may guess, it was not in fact okay. Immediately after takeoff, a bizarre humming noise was heard in the cockpit, followed by a bang. Bangs got louder and more frequent, but Captain wasn't sure what they were. First Officer Ulf Cedermark was a former Swedish fighter pilot and knew what it is. It was a compressor stall. A compressor stall is when air is not getting pushed backwards into burn chamber of the engine. It causes a pressure imbalance and a terrifying sensation of sudden deceleration. The icing job was not all good. Snow froze into ice, which broke off and slammed into right engine. Only 78 seconds into flight, they lost both engines. In a huge stroke of luck, one of the passengers was a former fighter pilot. Captain Per Holmberg heard the bangs, knew it's a compressor stall, and waltzed into the cockpit uninvited, asking, "Do you want a hand, guys?" Another stroke of luck is that the two pilots flying had no egos. Instead of being offended by his offer to help or even indignant at his temerity, they were like, "Sit right down, my friend. We'll take all the help we can get." That was a brilliant decision, one of many. But then it's hard to understand how lucky this proved. Captain Per Holmberg had developed his own checklist for double engine failures and calmly went through that. Per extended flaps, slowed the descent rate, and by doing that, he enabled Captain Rasmussen to focus out the window on where to try go. Meanwhile, flight attendant Eva Björnemark knew they were in a serious trouble but got no response from cockpit as the pilots were too busy. Eva took it upon herself to prepare passengers for a crash landing. If Eva hadn't been so alert and professional, people would have died. This is Eva's account. It sounded as if we were tumbling stones in a washing machine. I had never heard that before in the 23 years I had been flying. I knew I had to act very quickly. Heroic Eva broke 2 neck vertebrae in the crash. As Eva prepared passengers for the crash, pilots were looking for somewhere to land. Captain Rasmussen spotted a field, but Ulf and Per calculated they wouldn't make the field and would instead eat the houses. Pilots avoided the houses but hit the top of the trees in the forest and snapped the right wing off. Eva shouted, "Brace, brace, brace," to passengers. Captain Rasmussen controlled the plane for a tail-first landing, and the MD-81 broke into 3 pieces on impact. Newspapers throughout Europe called it the Christmas miracle. Here's the headline from the Evening Herald in late 1991. Although it's superficially an apt headline, beneath the surface of the miracle you find its essence, that is teamwork. What I mean is people coming together in a crisis. Now, as you conclude, the moral of the story according to me is nobody died in that crash because pilots weren't too proud to recognize they need help and to accept it. So, if you need help, reach out to someone. That is it for today. See you next time.